Who's to blame for Zimbabwe's troubled economy? The nation's president meets with business leaders for some tough talk and discussion on ways of turning things around. Malaria is a menace across Africa. Scientists are now saying man's best friend could come to the rescue. And a young entrepreneur in the U.S. state of Minnesota starts a fashion company with a special connection to refugees. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidhui. You are in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin our broadcast tonight in North Africa, where a 30-year-old woman detonated an explosive device and blew herself up in the Tunisian capital, wounding 9 people, including 8 police officers, in what the Interior Ministry calls a terrorist explosion. The blast happened Monday afternoon in the center of Tunis, in a busy area near the landmark Municipal Theatre and the French Embassy. Shops in the vicinity were closed and police later cordoned off the area. The state news agency Tunis Afrique Press, citing the Interior Ministry, says the bomber had no previously known militant background. Tunisia, which is heavily dependent on tourism, has improved security since a series of militant attacks targeting tourists nearly caused the collapse of the sector 3 years ago. Now to Southern Africa, where Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa met with business leaders Monday to discuss ways of boosting the country's troubled economy. He suggested companies are contributing to shortages by holding back essential goods, but one of the businessmen said the accusation is not true. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare.
President Emmerson Mnangagwa said his government is busy working to ease shortages of food, fuel, cash and other essentials, and to bring down skyrocketing prices that have hit Zimbabwe over the past 3 weeks.
All your real-time gross settlement RTGs balances at banks and the bond notes in the circulation are safe and secure. There should be no pressure to exchange or to offload these balances, as government policy has not changed to warrant such anxiety.
Sifela Njabangwe, who runs a protective clothing company in Harare, says businesses have been in a crisis over the past 3 weeks, mainly because of the local currency losing value.
When rates move like that, it becomes very difficult for business people to make decisions, because you don't know at what price you should sell your goods at, because if you sell at the wrong price, it becomes almost impossible to then restock.
He says current shortages are real as production levels have gone down and customers have bought all the goods that were on the market. He doubts companies are deliberately withholding products.
If there's anyone who's withholding any product, it's probably been because they were waiting to understand what direction. But I don't think there are many companies that are doing that. A lot of companies, they actually run out of raw materials.
The heart of the issue is a lack of cash. Since Zimbabwe abandoned its own dollar in 2009, people have conducted most transactions in US, British or South African currencies, all of which are in short supply. Mnangagwa said Monday that Zimbabwe will continue using bond notes, the money the government has printed for the past 2 years, to ease the cash shortage. But with the bond notes slipping in value, businesses may have to continue searching for foreign currencies to pay for the goods and raw materials they need to survive. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
Sudanese billionaire and philanthropist Mo Ibrahim is warning African countries to cut their booming birth rate and provide secure jobs for young people or risk a rise in conflict and militant groups. Ibrahim sounded the alarm on Monday as he launched his foundation's annual index showing the state of governance across 54 African countries. The index report found governance is slowly improving on average across Africa. However, it warned the economic growth over the last decade was mainly jobless, while many young people were missing out on quality education, even as the continent's population increased sharply. Africa is expected to account for more than half of the world's population growth between 2015 and 2050, according to the United Nations data. Its population is projected to double by 2050. Now, for more on the Foundation's findings on Africa, Abdoulaye Janneh, an executive director with the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, joins us via Skype from Dakar, Senegal. Abdoulaye, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Now, when I look at what you came out with yesterday, I see the foundation has painted quite a grim picture for Africa's youth. Will the continent heed Mo Ibrahim's warning?
Absolutely. I think they would. This is the most comprehensive data set they have to show where the continent and their individual countries are heading to. And the alarm bell we are sounding is one of socio-economic opportunity, which is the best way to create the jobs for the bulging youth population of the continent.
But then again, Abdoulaye, when you look at what you say a lack of prospects for Africa's youth, we've seen some of these issues pushing them towards militant groups, as well as taking the dangerous journeys to Europe to look for better opportunities. The question is, does the foundation offer any alternatives, to the African people?
No, what we have done is to put the facts before the African nations and African people, saying if the current trends continue, dealing with this huge challenge, which is the biggest challenge facing any African country, would be difficult. And then, we showed the indices, which would, if you improve on those, you'll be able to mitigate this problem. No, there's no country which is not faced with the youth issue, but the challenge is to really minimize it and make sure that you have the correct policies.
Now, we've heard a lot about sustainable development goals. What we haven't heard about is more about what kind of opportunities are available. What opportunities does the foundation kind of try to, what is the foundation telling the African population? These could be the opportunities that we can look towards.
No, I think the opportunities are there. Africa is a vast continent, significantly endowed, and with a lot of talented young people. Now, saying, how do you capture that? One of our recommendations, look at the opportunities, socio-economic opportunities. Look at your business environment. Look at the way you are managing your economies, public sector management. Look at issues of taxation, issues of budget management, issues of corruption, and that's one. And the other is really create the enabling environment for business to thrive, because at the end of the day, it is through business and the private sector that we will be able to produce the type of jobs that the youth can aspire to. Parallel to that, you must also make sure that we have quality education,
right.
And also the type of education which will make them ready for the market.
Abdoulaye, thank you very much for your time. Abdoulaye Janneh is an executive director with the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump are traveling to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Tuesday to pay their respects to the families of 11 worshippers killed at a synagogue in the city. However, some Jewish leaders are demanding that the president stay away until he denounces white nationalism. Trump has blamed the news media for inciting anger in America, leading to the shooting. Trump has deplored Saturday's mass shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue that left 11 dead and wounded 6 others, including police. The mayor of Pittsburgh says he asked the White House to hold off on a presidential visit until the victim's funeral on Tuesday at the request of the mourning families and the ongoing resources of law enforcement still dealing with the aftermath of the massacre. The shooting suspect, Robert Bowers, who was shot 3 times by police, made his initial court appearance on Monday on federal murder and assault charges. On Saturday, Pittsburgh became the latest American city to suffer a mass shooting. The gunman entered the Tree of Life synagogue and opened fire, killing mostly the elderly and disabled before wounding police officers responding to the scene. 3 of the city's religious leaders joined to support a city they say will not be broken by hate. VOA's Arash Arabasadi has more from Pittsburgh.
Monday night in Pittsburgh, roped off by police tape, the community gathers at a memorial to the victims of Saturday's mass shooting at the Tree of Life synagogue in the mostly Jewish neighborhood of Squirrel Hill. For 3 religious leaders in the city, the day started like any other.
I was up, the rest of my family was asleep, and I was on Facebook.
I was in my kitchen, about to drink some coffee.
I was going to spend my Shabbat experience at a church in the South Hills.
The minutes passed, and it became clear that this wasn't a typical Saturday, as emergency vehicles flooded the streets.
He zoomed past me, and then another one zoomed past me.
And then messages started pouring in from all over.
The extent of the...
And almost as quickly as the shooting began, religious leaders gathered together.
I immediately contacted Reverend Liddy.
I picked up the phone and I called Liddy. I said, Liddy, you got to start thinking about it. What are we going to do? We don't know when, but what's it going to be?
And so they planned an interfaith vigil. Thousands attended, many stood in the rain. But these faith leaders say that's nothing new in a city famous for its blue-collar work ethic.
Pittsburgh is resilient. We have come back from hard times before, and we have a legacy of rebuilding.
Pittsburgh has steel resolve.
Pittsburgh is beautiful. Pittsburgh has this sense of making you take ownership of the city.
Pittsburgh is a city of immigrants. Pittsburgh is a diverse and vibrant city, and it's one that cherishes and welcomes diversity.
Pittsburghers are richer because of that diversity.
Pittsburgh is strong like that.
And with the help of a national organization called Celebrate Mercy, Pittsburgh's Muslim community raised $70,000 in one day for the victims of Saturday's violence.
We're in this together because that's how we have to be throughout our world.
These religious leaders who insisted on being interviewed together have known each other and worked together for years. They say that love and unity are the best weapons they have against hate and bigotry. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel is calling for more private investments in Africa as she hosts African leaders in a drive to tackle underdevelopment on the continent, a problem that has helped to spur Africa's mass migration. Merkel said Tuesday it was important to speak with Africa, not about Africa, and that her government will establish a development investment fund for African and European countries to finance loans and enable new market launches. The Berlin summit, attended by 12 leaders, included South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed, and Rwanda's Paul Kagame, is designed to showcase the continent as a stable destination for German investment. Merkel announced Monday she would retire from politics by 2021, sending shockwaves across Europe. One of the defining moments of her 13 years in power was her 2015 decision to open Germany's doors to more than 1 million refugees. The Pentagon is deploying 5,000 troops along the U.S. border with Mexico to help agents deal with a caravan of Honduran migrants heading to the United States. The head of U.S. Northern Command, General Terrence O'Shaunnessy, says the soldiers will support more than 2,000 National Guardsmen already along the border. U.S. authorities say more than 6,000 migrants from Central America are heading toward the U.S. President Trump has repeatedly said the surge of migrants heading to America represents an invasion of the country, adding the military is waiting for them. Many of those trying to get to the United States want to escape what they say is a daily threat to their lives and lack of jobs. They also say they want to get their children away from the influence of gangs. Trump said those who want to get into the United States must do so through the legal process. Now, search and rescue crews off the coast of Indonesia on Tuesday are continuing the grim task of recovering the bodies of 189 passengers and crew believed to have perished when their air jetliner crashed into the sea minutes after taking off from Jakarta early Monday. Officials say that 24 body bags with human remains have been taken to a hospital for identification. Personal items, including clothing, have also been recovered from the crash site. The accident is the first reported involving the newer model Boeing 737 MAX 8, promoted for its fuel efficiency. Lion Air president says the plane that crashed into the sea Monday had a technical problem on its last flight that was resolved. He did not disclose the problem. Indonesia's President Joko Widodo has ordered the National Commission for Transportation Safety to investigate the crash. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Still ahead on Africa 54, highlighting the global refugee crisis through fashion. But first, a look at Tuesday's headlines.
Bedarf es staatlicher, aber vor allem eben auch privater.
Could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
The first World Health Organization Global Conference on Air Pollution and Health opened in Geneva on Tuesday, with the health agency saying air pollution is one of the greatest threats to global health and requires urgent action. According to the UN Health Agency, outdoor and indoor air pollution kills 7 million people worldwide each year, including 600,000 children, with 9 out of 10 people on the planet breathing in toxic air. The WHO has also said that the findings of these are worrying because pollution affects children, including evidence that it causes stillbirth and preterm birth, as well as diseases into adulthood, and should lead to urgent policy changes. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus told the conference that about 1/3 of deaths from heart disease, stroke, and lung cancer can be attributed to air pollution.
We know that air pollution is one of the biggest threats to global health, and we need to do something about it, and urgently. Let me remind you of some of the numbers. Air pollution kills 7 million people each year. Around the world, 9 out of 10 people breathe air that has been polluted by traffic emissions, industry, agriculture, and waste incineration.
WHO says it has figures to demonstrate the heavy burden of air pollution on human health, economies, food security, and the staggering opportunity cost of inaction. October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's also known as Pink October. For the last 3 years, an organization in Senegal called the League Against Cancer, known in short as LISCA, has run a Pink October awareness campaign to educate women about breast cancer. LISCA began offering free cancer screening last year to help women overcome the high financial costs of protecting themselves against the disease. Here's VOA's John Linden.
In 2010, the Senegalese League Against Cancer began observing Pink October, part of an annual international awareness campaign to fight breast cancer.
It's a campaign that we put in place after discovering that more than 75% of cancer patients have late-stage breast cancer. And we know that today the only tool we have is prevention and early detection screening. Screening for breast cancer is done by a mammogram, and we ask all women 40 years old or more to take one. But in Senegal, a mammogram costs between 60 and 80,000 francs. This is not accessible to the population.
To help women overcome this financial obstacle, LISCA, for almost a decade, has run for several years an awareness campaign and staged an event offering free cancer screenings and consultations in the capital city of Dakar.
I came to LISCA to get a voucher for screening of the cervix and the uterus. I heard about cancer and I want to let all women know to come and get a consultation.
The first public event, held on October 6th of last year, enabled roughly 600 women to get free private consultations and mammograms. A larger event, held October 20th, reached over 1,900 women. Physician Sophie Diop praised the effort and called for expanding it well beyond the capital city.
I congratulate all awareness campaigns and encourage them to expand for the sake of all women. They need to decentralize a lot more, which applies to the entire country, because we know that in rural areas, there are still women with advanced stages of cancer, but they are not familiar with the disease.
At least 1,500 new cancer cases are identified each year in Senegal, a West African country of nearly 15 million people. The World Cancer Research Fund says breast cancer is the most common cancer among women, but early detection and adequate medical treatment can improve their longevity and chances for surviving the disease. For John Linden, I'm Phil Dierking, VOA News.
Now, dogs are well known and valued for their ability to smell everything from drugs to bombs to contraband electronics. But scientists at Lancaster University have trained them to sniff out illnesses. Beg your pardon, specifically malaria. And that could be game-changing in the fight to stop the spread of the disease. VOA's Kevin Enox reports.
Here's how the study worked. Children in Ghana, some of whom had malaria, some who did not, were given socks to wear for one night. And the trained dogs tried to identify the socks that had evidence of the malarial parasite.
There's accumulating evidence that people that have malaria parasites produce specific odors, so they smell differently from other people. And most importantly, mosquitoes preferentially feed on people with malaria, so if mosquitoes can do it, why not dogs?
Dogs like Freya, trained by the group Medical Detection Dogs, were able to identify malaria correctly 70% of the time. And Lindsay says this could lead to new and really effective ways of stopping malaria from spreading.
If you're getting really close to malaria elimination, you're trying to find the last remaining hotspots and who are those people infected, rather than screening everyone. The dogs might be good enough to go into the villages and find people.
Lindsay says dogs are already on the front lines of disease and contraband detection, but may be able to detect a host of other illnesses as well.
So the folk that I'm working with, the dog handlers, have worked with their dogs to detect cancers and Parkinson's disease, and they actually have alert dogs that work with diabetic patients, that when they're going into hypoglycemia, the dogs notify the alert the person.
The medical detection team is also working with MIT to create a kind of e-nose that could do what the dogs do. But he says the dogs' noses are so sensitive the technology doesn't yet exist to match their sniffing power. Kevin Enochs, VOA News.
A young man in Minneapolis, Minnesota has set out to do something about the global refugee crisis, even if it has only a modest impact. He started a fashion company while in college, selling accessories with a special connection to refugees. In this report narrated by Molly McTerrick, VOA's June Saw introduces you to this young entrepreneur.
Perhaps nothing reminds people of the global refugee crisis better than these images taken on a beach in Greece. These jackets, thousands of them, were worn by refugees as they desperately crossed the Mediterranean Sea by boat. The stunning image moved Mohammed Malim, a business major. He started a fashion company last December, and his first product is a bracelet.
This bracelet is made out of recycled life jacket refugees have worn on their journey to safety in Greece. As you can see, the outside is the orange life jacket, and the inside is actually a leather embedded our company's name and our slogan, Building Humanity.
For Malim, now graduated from college, fashion is a tool to tell a story.
Everyone uses fashion in a way where they basically portray themselves, they tell a story, and I wanted to tell a story, through my fashion lenses.
He named his company Epomonia, a Greek word.
It means perseverance. When a refugee flees from a civil war or natural disaster, they go through a lot of hardships during the journey, and they persevere through the journey.
As a former refugee from Kenya, Malim knows how it feels.
My parents fled from the civil war back in Somalia during the 1990s. I was born in Kenya in a refugee camp when I was 3 years old. We first landed in Texas. I know how to overcome those obstacles in America.
The bracelets are made in the Dream Factory in the Netherlands, where Malim's business partner, also his uncle, employs refugees from all over the world.
This bracelet is not only a fashion piece, but it's a vehicle that supports and helps refugees. We give 50% of profit to nonprofit organizations that support refugees.
Malim sells the bracelets online and through college tours where he campaigns to raise awareness of the refugee crisis.
We need to understand that when a refugee flees from war, it's not their choice. And when they come to a new country, we need to embrace their culture, the diversity and their talents that they're bringing in.
Hence, the Embracelet. Malim plans to expand to other fashion items. For producer June So in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I'm Molly McKitterick, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune into VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. This expression sounds like a violent way of eating, but it's actually not always about eating.
Here is your Russian book, Anna. Thanks for letting me borrow it.
Oh, are you done with level 1 already?
Yeah, I finished last week, and I've already finished level 2.
Wow, you are really sinking your teeth into learning Russian.
Well,